what you want to do and how you set the tone in the first day of practice, and then how you kind of build up to the first padded practice?
Well, I think as we realize, just coming off last year's training camp, you have a ramp up phase, so you have 4 days that are very similar. It's part of why going back to yesterday, we didn't have the traditional conditioning test because we look at these 4 segmented practices that are shorter, GPS friendly, and just to focus on working through it at a slower, more controlled pace. So we're gonna we jumped right into the football this morning. We want to get right into we'll have a 2-minute drill today, so we really want to take advantage of all the excellent work the players gave us in the off-season program. So, today was more of just a quick review on a lot of things that we were able to get done back in May and June, and so we'll hit it running. But it'll be shorter practices. We won't be longer. Shoot, it was an hour and what we got here? An hour and can't read my own damn writing. 123 minutes. So it's not very long, and we'll actually. Once we get to the practice 3 and 4, will be more red zone and so forth. So we're in the ramp-up phase. We'll be in helmets and shirts today. So obviously a little different than the traditional schedule, but it'll be gives us a chance to get our guys to get their legs under them, get back in.
Why the attention to that? Why was that important for you?
What do you mean?
To look at the schedule, shorten the practices, sort of do things a little differently than what it even sounds like you did in the past.
Well, ramp. Every practice schedule they're probably very similar. On the amount of time, the workload. There's a lot of science that goes behind this. You had a chance to talk to the league office. I thought we had 2 really informative Zoom calls. When you look at the history of fatigue injuries this time of year. My personal experiences, the 5th, 6th, and 7th practices have always been major stress points of the training camp schedule. So the undulation going into 5, 6, and 7, this definitely gives you a better scope going into that. So it all makes sense. And at the end of the day, we all have the same schedules, so in the same block of time, and we just gotta. It's all part of the competition of training your team.
You were raised in the game a little.
I think it just really lights my fire a lot brighter and harder on the urgency of it, because I think just like anything, when you're in charge of training the football team, you always have angst of I wish I had a little more time over here. Then you steal from Peter to pay Paul and so forth, and I think I've said this yesterday was my first year as a head coach was 06, and consistently since then. Time has been taken away from the opportunity of the coaches and players working together. So with that, I think for the people that weren't a part of it in the 90s and early 2000s, that I think it's like anything. Like when you think this is the way it's always been, then you're obviously a little more. Yeah, it definitely, because I think at the end of the day, this game is about playing with fundamentals, and the opportunity to get into the padded work fundamentals is definitely is a challenge. You just got to be really smart and efficient with your time.
All the same for everyone, so it's fair. But with 6 or 7 padded practices, is there any way to get close to being where you want to be for week 1?
Well, I mean, I know there's a big push to get 7-on-7 into the Olympics, so maybe this is part of it. Okay, kidding, but I think it's just the realm that we're in. And I think we all have the same. We all have the same thing. I think, there's certain positions that are affected by this more than others. I mean, the first group I always think about is the O-line. You think, if you look at the way they practice in the OTAs, and, it's clearly the hand-to-hand combat and the padded work is definitely for the fronts, both the offensive front and the defensive front that's the biggest challenge is getting that group ready. The perimeter work I think has been excellent. I think as coaches, we've been challenged to be creative and resourceful in how we rep, the efficiencies of reps. You'll see today at the end of practice, we have jog throughs and walk throughs. We call it a 2-spot where we're going 2 groups, so 1s versus 1s, 2 versus 2, just trying to double up on our reps, more of a college football approach. We did some of that last year. We're going to do a lot more of it this year. So it just makes you really look at the the time efficiency, and I think we've done a great job scheduling wise, and our players are in tune with it. That we have an 11-hour workday, and we got to max it out, and every minute's accounted for, and we got to do a great job each and every day because they clearly understand that this is going to go fast. This 4 weeks is going to go very fast. You got 1 week of ramp up. You got week 2 is your you got 4 padded practices in 5 days, and then you get 2 more padded practices, and then we're off to Denver. So it's going to go fast, and everybody has the urgency to stay on top of that, and that'll be a big part of our success, having a good camp.
You mentioned yesterday the discipline, grit, fundamentally sound, for that part of your identity that you want to create. How do you go about instilling each of those 3 here at training camp?
Well, I think it's like anything. Mathematics is a big part of life, and how you regulate and calculate and all those things. So you're able to apply statistics and information to all those areas. And it's why we work the hours that we do as coaches. So there's levels of discipline in everything what we do. Schematically, our basic function. We really want to be better in the area of mind speed and fast. That's why I've always been a huge proponent of 2-minute drills and up-tempo offense and so forth. Not as much because that's the way I would prefer to play on offense, but it's really the way it stresses the defense, and it's about this with the mental approach, and everybody's quicker. It's because that's the way the game's played. And our job's to make the games easy. And I think that's a big part of of having coaching principles for that, and that's the way we've always approached it since I've been here.
How about the framework of CBA and what you can and cannot do? How do you create that?
Well, I mean, that's I think we can all agree on that. But I think really grit goes past the physical. I think the mental toughness and the emotional toughness. We have an excellent mental conditioning coach in Chad Boeing. It's here with us for a couple of days. So I really enjoyed his segment yesterday. So those are the things that we're working on. It's all about what arena you can compete in and try to grow in, and the mental and emotional arenas are obviously very important. I think our players have done a really good job hitting the target, physically getting themselves ready for this training camp, and so we need to max out the mental and the emotional challenges.
When you look back at last year in Zeke's season, do you break it down pre-injury, post-injury in any way? When you look back at it, would he have been better served to rest it all as opposed to keep playing?
Yeah, I don't think you question those things. There's so much that goes into those decisions on a weekly basis, based on the player, the training staff, and so forth. I've never carried emotion into medical decisions. I think that's where you get in trouble. So, and players, play hurt in this league, and he did for a big part of it. I look at it from the other end. I think it's really a reflection of who he is as a competitor, as a football player. Zeke Elliott's one of our rocks on this team. I mean, he's a keystone player, and so the communication and his ability to do all the extra little stuff, and those are the things that I get to look at and be a part of. But you see all the extra work that he puts in pre-practice, post-practice, in there on Tuesdays. I mean, he's in the quarterback meetings in the morning. So, but the physical part of it, he overcame a lot to play, and I think that speaks volumes about him. And you need those type of individuals to win championships.
Gallup opens on up. Can you talk a little bit more about where he is? And you seem very encouraged in off season about where he is. Just maybe what his time.
Yeah, I don't think Mike has missed he hasn't missed a target yet. I mean, I just know that, I just think we do an incredible job with our players, from a rehab standpoint. I mean, Britt he's got his hands on those guys every day, and Michael's been there every day, and he's he hasn't had a setback, and so I think he's clearly over that stage where he's probably entering into the fourth quarter of his rehab. So, but yeah, he looks really good, and I don't have a distinct timeline for you, but he's definitely on target.
What's the plan for Jabril Cox as he works back? Is he
Yeah.
full go, or are you going to have to?
Oh no, we got to be smart with Jabril. Obviously, I mean, I think all players coming off a major joint injury, you obviously just don't want to throw him back out there. So yeah, he'll definitely be on a rep count and be, position specific on what he's asked to do.
What about with James Washington? We didn't get to see much of him.
Yeah, he's, I like where James is at, mentally and so forth. We just got to get him healthy, and but he's been a really, really good fit for us. I think that, start more at the split end, rotation. But yeah, it'd be good to get him back out there.
Anybody else you're going to be slow with, cautious with early on?
No.
Marcus Long, everybody else is full.
Yep.
Okay.
Especially, I think the schedule builds to that. You'll see how we practice. It's not, we have 2 competitive team periods, so I think his practice definitely lays up for that.
What appeals to you about Washington?
Well, I tell you, he's a strong player. He's a physical player. I think when you break down the receiver position, he has a lot of flanker traits from the split end side, and what I'm talking about is his ability to go in there and dig out safeties and run the crossing routes. He has the vertical speed, obviously, so his vertical stem routes are definitely a strength of his. So and I haven't seen a whole lot of him. I can't really give you an analysis on him in a slot because we haven't had a chance to see him there. But his ability to play with flanker characteristics at X is something that I think is unique for him.
Mike, you mentioned Chad's session yesterday and that you liked it. What was the focus of that session?
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's the start of training camp is identifying clearly what the opportunity is in front of us. And we put a lot of time into messaging and I think for Chad and just the way he interacts with us, obviously works with both us and the New York Yankees. Him and I are always building the syllabus because at the end of the day, it's keeping the team on a good path and just giving them focal points to grab onto and so forth. So just really more of an introductory. This is how we see it moving forward, and talked a little bit about our particular opportunity as Dallas Cowboys. So it was just more of a let's get started into the training camp mode.
Jerry said something interesting yesterday about
Sorry, who did?
Jerry Jones.
Okay.
And he talked about not wanting to see Dak throw the ball halfway down the field. In other words, even as we were heading into camp, it was Dak's a guy we've got to make sure doesn't push himself. So are you guys having those conversations, especially when he says he's in the best shape of his life, he feels ready to go? Don't push yourself in camp?
Well, it's really an everyday deal. It's not just something that starts in training camp. In same way, I think these professional athletes today, and specifically to the NFL football player, the rule changes has really heightened the need for outsourcing. As far as what you need to do to get it done. I grew up in a time that quarterback school started back in March, so you were able to be that fundamental coach and the throwing coach. So you were able to you had time to do all those drills because one thing about playing quarterback in this league, you go out here to practice, and it's why we do the early quarterback school. When do they get to work on their fundamentals? Where because they're always tied to the running back, they're tied to the receivers, they're tied to the tight ends, and then they're in the run. So, that's the one group that is really neglected in the traditional practice structure of how to do fundamentals. So, yeah. So to answer your question, as far as regulation and workload and all that, it's really it's the beauty of GPS, and I think it's something that you have to learn. I know I have through trial and error, starting 10, 12 years ago, but you got to understand thresholds. You got to understand, the particulars to each individual, and now that we've, this is year 3 for us, and really Harold Nash and Britt Brown and I are the GPS committee, and I think we have a pretty good grasp on each guy's workload capacity, and we just got to stay within those realms.
How important is the frame of reference of the screen? Because you have not done a conditioning test yesterday. Being able to monitor what a guy does today or tomorrow and compare it to what he typically did in the spring, just kind of see where he is physically. Well,
we had the rookies run the conditioning test Sunday morning. So, that's something that, I wanted to get that GPS number on those guys. We obviously had data from the spring, but really everybody else we have history with. We have a profile. So it's just really, tying that all together, and I think going back to the first question, this first 4 days of ramp up is a very natural build-in to hit the climb that you're looking for going into the more physical install practices.
Mike, you
Okay.
Sunday mornings, that was back.
Sunday morning in Frisco, yeah, at the Star. Yep.
Mike, you mentioned Zeke in those quarterback meetings in the morning. Why do you think he does that, and what do you think he gets out of it?
He's all football. I mean, I just, you know, when you think of Zeke, you think of his running style. I know that was always my first impression. I remember the first time I saw him was, 2016. I was on the other sideline. He come run down the sideline. I was like, oh my God, look at the size of the head on that guy. I mean, he's just a different runner, and he can run really fast. So he's just a powerful runner. But I think what you learn about these guys when you're around them in the classroom in the everyday setting, is just really how smart of a football player. I mean, they're, great players, good players, I mean, are normally your smartest players, your most instinctive players. So he's a very in tune, very experienced, obviously, but he's a very smart football player. And honestly, I think he likes to be engaged at the quarterback level, and I think it speaks to Kellen and Nussmeier on Doug as far as how environment that they have in there, and the fact that he can come in there and be part of that conversation. So, something that you encourage, but I think it's a reflection of who he is as a player.
How comfortable were you with the run-pass ratio you had on offense last year? And do you want to run more or just be more effective with a healthy running back and a different group of offensive linemen?
Well, I think, overall run, like today we're putting in normal down a distance in second 1 to 7 in a 2-minute end to half. So those are our situational emphasis, and one of the things I do with the team is I have the anatomy of each situation. So the point I'm making is the run and pass in normal down and distance. When you look at our numbers compared to, the league numbers, we're not, we're pretty much in line with all that. And really the point I'm making with the team, there's patterns to everything. These patterns have always been there. It's just more really the recognition of those patterns and understanding where you're at as far as how the other guy's looking at you. So I think the next step really is to take it as, are we running it more too much under center versus in the gun and those types of things. So that's really where our focus is, just to make sure that, we're conceptually running the things that give our players the best chance to be successful each and every week, but to make sure that, the mannerisms, the picture of, what it looks like, in pre-snap, that we're doing our due diligence on, making sure we can maybe, gain an edge or, just, don't give the defense the picture where, the whole world knows where the ball's going before the ball's snapped.
So you like the ratio, or is it just, you like the run-pass ratio, you think it's just kind of...
Yes, yeah, and I know it's something in my past, and I can remember clearly. I think it was 07 when we started running all the run solution throws, and I can remember Brett saying, "God, if I'd have had these, I'd have thrown for 5,000 yards every year." Just because, when at first the free access and the ability to, and then the RPOs came off of that and so forth. So I think you got to watch those numbers. That's what we do. Because that's why I'm always on ball distribution. Because if you hand it to Tony or throw it to Zeke, let's be honest. At the end of the day, what's the difference? The most important thing is to get the ball in their hands. But being cognizant and being in tune with the fact that you need to give your run blocking unit the opportunity to come off on the balls of their feet and get after it, and just that they're not playing on their heels all the time too. So that's really where that's where I keep my focus on. Are we helping our tackles enough, even when we're calling run plays and we still may throw the run solution or it's an RPO, but you still got to give these guys, particularly in first and second down, and the numbers will tell you this, you have to give these guys opportunities to come off the ball, because if not, now the defense is playing at a half a click faster than you are, because they're in their pass rush stance and they're getting off on a snap, and just put your O-line on their heels too much.
How much time will Micah be alternating between linebacker room and defensive line room, and what kind of dictates how you navigate that?
Well, that's top secret stuff here. What are we giving away here? No, he'll go back and forth. I think when you look at the numbers, it's because the one thing, and we actually talked about this yesterday in the personnel meeting, is he, how much is he playing on the line versus off the line? So, because just like anything, you got to take the next step. How much is he playing on the line from the linebacker position, assignment too? So, yeah, I don't want to say it's 50-50, but clearly he's working in both rooms.
talk a lot about conditioning this time of the year. I can't help but notice on social media that people are taking note that you've slimmed down. A lot of us could use a little advice in that regard. Any keys?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, thank you. Number one, it's the basics. I'm not real comfortable talking about myself, particularly my waistline, but no, I think, number one, I've had some people help me. I think I need to acknowledge that. Gentleman, friend Jim Roberts and Darren Pierce. I think these guys have, as far as, working out, nutrition and things like that, but really just sticking to the basics. I haven't done a great job, with the stress of this job over the years. And, and I think just like anything, it's about routine, regularity, but it just really comes down to the basics. It's, at the end of the day, it's mathematics, how much you let in versus how much you take, how much you produce on the output. So just really staying in touch with that.
Just last one right here.
Boxing that you do?
Yeah, there's a group of us. It's really Harold Nash, our strength conditioning coach. He has a really good friend, Darren Pierce. So we started doing it on Saturday mornings, and then it grew into a couple days a week. And so there's about 5 or 6 of us that do, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. So I think of you guys a lot. Well, actually, while I'm doing it, but it's and I'm getting good too. So thank you for the motivation. So. It's I throw it with bad intentions. I'll just tell you that. So, thank you.